Yes, we are live on a Monday edition of the Sports Bash here on 97.3 ESPN, a special MLK early edition of the Sports Bash. I'm your host, Mike Gill. Josh Henning producing today's show. You out there, taking you up until 2 o'clock today. We'll have the Sixers at 2, and then I'll be back after the Sixers game from about 4:30 to about 6. So you get a kind of a double dose of the Sports Bash, but we felt that we had to take time to have a conversation today and really break down what happened in the game. 5 observations up right now at 973ESPN.com. Definitely want to hear from you. A lot of reaction today. Wild card weekend, got thoughts all over the place. In reality, this game is not tough to break down, right? The game is not a difficult one to break down. The Eagles got beat by a flat-out better team. They are in a different spot in the hierarchy of the NFL right now. There are a couple of teams that are Super Bowl rosters, contenders, and there are a couple teams that are building. This isn't like a game that you need to overreact to. There doesn't need to be a panic or overreaction from what happened in this game on Sunday. The Philadelphia Eagles got beat by a better team. That's clear and obvious. This isn't, well, this guy stinks and he needs to go and yada, yada, yada. This is an unfinished product. For them to be in that game yesterday was not expected. In the moment that it happens, yeah, it hurts. Like you want them to perform better. But the reality is you went into that game with an understanding of they really shouldn't have been there. I mean, the NFL added a 7th team to the playoff ledger this year. That's what got them into the playoffs. They made big strides in improvement, but this is a team that won 4 games last year. This should not be a surprise. So anybody who has like this outrage today or, hey, look at what happened to the Eagles. Eagles fans should not be delusional of what happened yesterday. What happened yesterday should have been expected. I think a lot of people, myself included, felt that the Eagles could have performed better. They could have shown better in the game. I think they could have put up more of a fight in the game, but there were a lot of reasons why I feel that game went down a demoralizing road. One of them would be, I thought right off the bat, all right, and this isn't why they lost the game, but I'm just saying, the Buccaneers set the tone from the jump. The Eagles win the toss, they defer, and the Bucs go right down the field and score. It's a demoralizing way to start the game when you know you've had trouble stopping this particular team in the past, when you know you've had trouble defending quarterbacks of a higher caliber in the past. So you give them the ball, and then they show you can't stop us right off the bat. I advocated, if you win the toss, take the ball, and show them, hey, we're here for a fight. They didn't do that, and they got their teeth kicked in right off the jump. It's not why they lost the game. Number 2, you're now down in the game. You have 17 yards of offense in the entire first quarter. 17 yards of offense in the first quarter. You're driving. You have a chance right before the half. There's 50 seconds left. You're down 17-0. You finally get your footing. You're finally moving the ball, and Devontae Smith gets open. His defender falls down, and Hurts missed him. He didn't see him right away. He hesitated, and that hesitation was the difference in scoring a touchdown and getting the ball intercepted by safety Mike Edwards. Because Smith is so open that if you just deliver the ball, he is probably going to score. Instead, you hesitate, and I thought Hurts had a lot of hesitation in the game. I thought there was guys that were open that Hurts just had some hesitation in the game. He did not play well, period, point blank. He did not play well. But he misses a wide-open Smith. The ball gets intercepted, and just like that, Tampa Bay shuts you out in the first half. You then get the ball back to start the second half. All right, we're down 17-0. We had a chance to score. Let's not panic. You go 3 and out. Well, then The defense, for God's sake, they had 4 sacks. And how many punts did they actually create yesterday? The defense actually did a job yesterday. I mean, you can't ask them to do much more than they did. They had 4 sacks. How many punts did Tampa have yesterday? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. They punted 7 times yesterday. You had 4 sacks and 7 punts. I mean, how much more could you ask the defense to do? They get a 3 and out. You're down 17-0. They get a 3 and out, and then Jalen Reagor enters the game. At one point of this situation with Reagor, it has to stop being on Reagor. That's on the coaching staff. Why is he still out there? Okay, Reagor stinks. We all get that. That's not the conversation that we're having today. The conversation is, why is he continuing to be out there when you know he's hurting the football team? I put that squarely on Sirianni and whoever the special teams coach is, Mike Clay. Now, Sirianni said yesterday that essentially they were going to take him out, that they didn't have another punt returner because Greg Ward had back spasms. I guess they don't have another guy. I don't know. But to me, that's not a good enough response. You can't keep putting him out there. He has completely lost confidence. He has completely lost the ability to help this team. And that, to me, that was the demoralization of the game. At that point, it's 17-0. They get the ball. They would have the ball at midfield. You score there, it's 17-7. And you're in that game. He fumbles that ball. They get the ball back, and that leads to the Gronk touchdown. And the way that they scored the Gronk touchdown, that ends it right there. I mean, Gronk just wide open. If you could have said, what's the one kind of touchdown that you can't give up here? It's Gronk wide open so that he can spike the ball in the Gronk style and get that place going bonkers. And that's exactly what happens. They go right down, Gronk touchdown, Spike-a-roni, 24-0, season over. Jalen Reagor, thanks for coming. And it's then 24-0. The Eagles have the ball again. They get another stop, for God's sakes, with 5:30 left in the third. And it's 4th and 3, and Hurts just backpedaling, floats a pass up, intercept it. That leads to the Mike Evans touchdown on the very next play. It's now 31-0, and of course the game set match right there. The team was outplayed, outclassed, and outcoached the entire day. I thought Sirianni coached scared. I thought he was ultra conservative offensively. Even if you're going to run the game, they were running RPOs down 31-0. I mean, for God's sakes, they had Aikman is begging them to throw the ball to Devonta Smith, and they just didn't do it. But you got a first-year coach, you got a first-year quarterback, you got a first-year wide receiver. You expect a lot of mistakes when you're playing against the defending Super Bowl champions. My message today would be, let's not overreact to this loss. They weren't really supposed to be here. They got into the playoffs. It was a treat to have an extra game. But now we get to see what work needs to be done. And they've got a lot of it. 609-403-0973. 609-403-0973. We're starting early today. I'll take you till 2. The Sixers have their annual MLK Day game. And then I will be on after that game right around 4:30 tonight. So we will have 2 hours of conversation, me and you, and then I'll come back around 4:30 till 6. Josh will have game night. We've got the wild card game tonight. So we got a whole bunch to dive into. 609-403-0973. Hit me up on the text board. Phone lines will open up as well. We will fit in some calls today. I can try my best to do so. We only have 2 hours. I got Sal Powell on the other side. He was down there. I want to get his reaction on what's next. What's the feeling around this organization? How far away are they? Sports Bash live Monday, 97.3 ESPN, the free mobile app. And, of course, you could watch the show live right now, streaming on our YouTube channel. Just search 973 ESPN on the YouTube channel, and you can watch us till 2 here on the Sports Bash. Sports Bash 97.3 ESPN. It's brought to you by DraftKings Sportsbook, partnership with Resorts Casino Hotel in Atlantic City. Visit resortsac.com to book your next getaway and for game day specials. Eagles season comes to a close, 30-15. You can even make an argument that wasn't as close as that final score. But I feel like basically outcoached, outclassed, beat up in all three phases of the game. And I say all three phases because obviously the punt returner yesterday was a big factor in the game. The offense, just no creativity in the offense, very conservative offensively and very conservatively defensively. Sal Paolantonio, ESPN senior national correspondent, was there and can give us some more insight on what he saw down in Tampa. Sal, it looked like a team, I don't want to say that the moment was too big for, but it looked like a team that obviously was just not ready for what they were up against. This was a 2-7, and it looked like it.
Yeah, they were not ready. They definitely were not ready for what Todd Bowles and the Bucs defense threw at them early in the game. 10 men at the line of scrimmage, run blitzes, Jordan Whitehead just jumping the run game, keying on Miles Sanders, even behind the line of scrimmage. Devin White, the all-pro linebacker, keying on Jalen Hurts in the run game. And they didn't have an answer for it. It's interesting because after the press conference from Nick Sirianni, I walked with Sirianni on his way to do his one-on-one interview with John Clark of NBC in the tunnel at Raymond James Stadium because they were out of questions and they had to get on the bus and blah, blah, blah. So I walked with him for about 20 yards, 30 yards, and I asked him specifically, what was the deal with having no answer to the run blitzes in the first quarter? Because it made the Eagles one-dimensional. It was like I said to him, Todd Bowles was basically daring Jalen Hurts to throw the football, and you couldn't do it. So what was the deal there? And he disagreed with me that Bowles was daring Jalen Hurts to throw the ball. He said that there were certain looks that, that Jalen Hurts was stuck in and he couldn't get out of them. And, I didn't really buy his answers. He didn't really buy my question. I didn't think he was ready for the question. But, to me, the bottom line is, you had to know that they were going to key on the run game because that was the number one element for the Eagles in the last 10 games. And, one way to do that is to run blitz and make sure that you take out the top two runners, which is Sanders and Jalen Hurts. And so they had to have an answer for that. What was the contingency plan? What was the alternative? What was Jalen Hurts supposed to do when he went to the line of scrimmage? How was he supposed to get out of those plays and get into good ones? And he didn't have an answer for me after the game. And he didn't have an answer for the Bucs defense during the game.
No, they didn't. And obviously, they really crowded that box. They dared Hurts to beat him. Hurts didn't have it. That was not his best outing yesterday. I'll ask you, Sal, because you're there. You get a chance to see from up top a little bit better. Were there plays to be made that just weren't made by the quarterback, or was it just not a good game plan?
There were not plays to be made. I can say that emphatically. It was a bad game plan. Todd Bowles outcoached Nick Sirianni, clearly outcoached the entire offensive coaching staff that did not put a quarterback in his first playoff game in a position to succeed. Michael, there should have been checks at the line of scrimmage. Okay, if they're showing run blitz and you got Jordan Whitehead, their big thumping safety, down in the box, nosing around, looking for Miles Sanders, how am I getting out of this play and getting into a good play? What am I calling? And there didn't seem to be on the menu for Jalen Hurts a way out. And that's not on Jalen Hurts. I'm sorry. It's just not.
Right. And obviously they're outmatched yesterday. Let's go to defense because we talk about the lack of creativity in the offense. I know, and you texted me during the game about the offense. They need to change the game plan or they're going to get beat. And I think around halftime you said game over. Defensively, at the end of the day, 31. They gave up a lot in front. They forced 7 punts and had 4 sacks. I mean, did you feel that the defense was hanging in there for them?
Michael, if I had said to you before the game The Eagles would sack Tom Brady, and they would force Tom Brady to punt 7 times,
Right.
and they would lose the game. You would have said, that's outrageous. No way.
Exactly.
No way. No way. So even with all of that bad offensive game planning, once Tristan Wirfs, the all-pro tackle of the Bucks, goes out with an ankle injury, and the Eagles are getting to Tom Brady. So it's now 10 minutes left in the third quarter.
Mm-hmm.
They got a punt from deep in their own end zone, and it comes out, and Rager muffs the punt. They're down 17-0 at that point. He muffs the punt around midfield. If he just catches the punt, fair catches the punt, and puts the Eagles at midfield, we may be having a different conversation today.
I said that before you came on. I said that muffed punt was demoralizing in all facets of the game because they go down, and it's not that they score a touchdown. It's the way they score. It's the Gronk in the back of the end zone, wide open, gets the spike and gets the whole place partying, and it just goes right back to Rager, who just demoralized the whole game.
Well, I don't know about demoralized, but yes, it definitely let the air out of the sideline. But what it did is it took away the momentum. The Eagles at that point had a shot at midfield.
Mm-hmm.
If he just catches the punt. You're only down 17. You're moving the ball. You're getting to Brady. Tristan Wirfs is not in the game. Ryan Jensen is clearly hurt. They're all pro center. You're getting to Brady. You're getting to him.
Yeah.
If he catches the punt and they make it a 17-7 game, that really, to me, is the absolute turning point, without a doubt, in the game. Now, you could go back to the interception that Jalen Hurts threw at the end of the second quarter in the end zone.
Yeah.
I mean, all you needed to do there, was that on second down or first down? I forget. But
the interception, right? You're talking about the interception where he tried to throw the ball to Smith. Yeah, that was a 2nd and 4 at the 21. There's 50 seconds left, right? So they're going to get 3 at worst case scenario.
Right. All you needed to do was get 3. If you got 3 there, now it's 17-3 when they're punting, and you get another 7 or 3, maybe it's 17-6 or 17-10. You and I are having a different conversation this morning.
Yeah. Obviously, they lose that game, and the questions start coming in. What's the message of this season? Is it, hey, this team's got the arrow moving in the right direction, Sal, or do you think it's, well, now they have a lot of questions based on the result of this game?
Michael, I knew you were going to ask me that. I actually wrote notes about it because it's an important question. I don't think it's answerable right now. And it's not because I'm punting out of the answer. It's just that I feel like everybody needs to settle in on what happened and go back and look at it. But I'll say this. A, they're an ascending team. They had 4 wins last year. They went to the playoffs this year. Season a success. But they proved that in the postseason, as Pittsburgh did against Kansas City, that there's a large gap between the top 2 seeds and the bottom seeds, like the 7 seed. Huge gap.
Yep.
Huge, right? And so you need to close that gap, I think, without a doubt. And what are the ways that it can close the gap? That takes a lot of off-season review. And your follow-up question is, okay, Sal, what about the quarterback? And my answer is, okay, he's the quarterback. And I liked his answer after the game. My year 3 starts right now, starts tomorrow. So he has the right attitude, without a doubt. I think he has the right attitude and approach. But does he have the skill, right? You can have a lot of slogans and attitudes and approach, but your coaches have to have the right plan. You have to have the right talent, and you have to have the right execution. It's pro football. And if you don't have those 3 things, you can't win in the NFL. You just can't. So you look at Tampa. Tampa has an all-star coaching staff that put in a perfect plan. And they have a quarterback who knows what he's doing in all circumstances, no matter who he loses. He loses Fournette. He loses Godwin. He loses Tristan Wirfs. He still wins the game.
Yeah.
He's still in there in the fourth quarter as a 44-year-old man. at the end of the football game.
It's unbelievable.
So you still need the talent and the execution. The plan, talent, execution. Those three things go hand in hand. And Eagles really had none of them yesterday, in my view. None of them.
Sal Paolantonio was there and obviously saw it all unfold. The Eagles lose 31-15, and now to the drawing board, as you mentioned, the quarterback questions and a lot of things. You start to look at the tape, you start to look back and say, all right, where do we need to fix? My question isn't about the roster so much, but do you feel, Sal, that they got the right staff in place? Because you just talked about that. We saw all across the NFL this weekend how important being prepared and having the right staff is. Do we feel at least they are good in that department?
I don't. I think that the defensive coordinator needs to be changed. But they won't change him. I think he needs to change or change his approach, one of the two. But I don't think that they will. I think they're very high on Jonathan Gannon, and I think that's misplaced. That was proved yesterday. I think that Sirianni needs to take an honest look, and so does the coaching staff, on, okay, how are they going to put Jalen Hurts in a position to succeed in a game where the defensive coordinator designs with his talent to take away a major aspect of what they do, which is run the football and force him to throw.
All right, Sal.
Can they get those guys open? So, if you're going to – changing the quarterback is harder to do, right, Mike? Harder because, okay, are you trading for one? Are you drafting one? And who are these guys? Are you going for a free agent? I mean, it's so hard to find one. It's really hard. I mean, they whiffed on Carson Wentz, and you don't want them to whiff on Jalen Hurts, but clearly they have to take an honest look at where they are. You want to take 3 first-round picks and take a flyer on Deshaun Watson? Ask me that question. I say no right now. No, I do not. Do I want to do it on Russell Wilson? The answer is no. I don't want to take 3 first-rounders and give it to Seattle and Russell Wilson. I think he's too old for 3 first-round picks. But if you're saying to me that you can get Russell Wilson for 1 first-round pick and maybe something else, the answer is yes, absolutely yes, for sure, 100%, but not 3.
I feel like we say this every year, Sal, at the end, that it will be an interesting offseason. But having 3 picks and a quarterback situation that is, let's be honest, a little murky. People might like him, but there's certainly
it's murky.
Right.
Yeah.
So this offseason will certainly, because they're going to be attached to everybody because of those picks. Right?
Well, they are.
Yeah. Whether those rumors or reports are unfounded or not, they're going to be every quarterback who's available, they're going to be attached to because they have those picks, which is going to make this offseason very turbulent.
Yeah, and, it's really it's not going to be up to Nick Sirianni. He did the right thing by saying all those positive things about Jalen, and Jalen did ascend at the end of the year, and he certainly proved his leadership and toughness without question. But to me, Michael, that game yesterday is not on Jalen Hurts. It's just not.
Yeah,
it is just not. The coaching staff needed to have dialed in answers to what Todd Bowles presented. I mean, Todd Bowles won the Super Bowl last year. Come on.
Oh, I think your colleague
Patrick Mahomes last year.
I think your colleague Chris Mortensen had a stat this morning that really kind of quantifies what you're saying. Is the quarterback who made his first start in the playoffs up against a guy who's had playoff experience is like 15-39 or something like that. So experience matters, and Hurts obviously, and this team just did not have it. They got a taste of it, and now they need to build on that.
I mean, Todd Bowles, come on.
Yeah.
I mean, in my view, he's the best coach in the NFL right now. It's not even close. This team down here has Bowles and Brady. Who's going to beat that combination?
Watching yesterday, it looked tough. The defense for them, the point you make about their defense is absolutely right. They are, because offensively, they're missing so much, but defensively, they are very, very smart and very, very well coached.
All right, Mike, we'll talk on Friday.
There you go. By the way, Johnny G and the Burger Realty team doing it again here on this Monday, a special 12:15 edition. Look at that. We come on early. He's down in Tampa. Sal Pal, take care, man.
Thank you, Michael.
All right, that's Sal Palantonio. He'll be back on Friday as we start to take a look ahead to the offseason for a Sal Pal Friday here on the Sports Bash live on 97.3 ESPN. I'm Mike Gill. The Sports Bash, we're normally on from 2 to 6. So those of you who are tuning in and saying, what the heck is Mike Gill doing on at 12:30 in the afternoon? Well, we have Sixers basketball coming up at 2. So we wanted you the opportunity to chime in. We'll do that on the other side. I got a couple open lines if you want to jump in on the phones. 609-573-3776, 609-573-3776. More reaction. Sal Pal says, not the quarterback's fault. Can't blame the quarterback. I said before, let's not overreact about what happened on Sunday. They got beat by a better team. If you think they should have beat that team, your expectations are a little out of whack. Can you be disappointed? 1,000%. Be disappointed. I'm disappointed. I thought the game would be closer. I thought they'd have a shot to win that game. They're not ready. We saw that they're not ready. And I don't think the quarterback played very well, but I kind of agree that even if he played his best game, they ain't winning that game. They just were not ready. Sports Bash live, 97.3 ESPN, the free mobile app. Watch us live on the YouTube channel. Use the YouTube app on your phone or smart TV. This is the Sports Bash. 12:37 Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN on a Monday. Yes, the Eagles season comes to a close. We're with you till 2, Sixers, Wizards then, and then we'll jump back on after the Sixers and Wizards. Sal Powell says the Eagles are an ascending team, a season of success, but a large gap they need to close between where they are and the top teams. On the quarterback, he says he's the quarterback, the right attitude, the right approach, but does he have the skill? He also said very forcefully, I think John Gannon needs to go. He says, I think the defensive coordinator needs to be changed, but they won't do it. He does have 2 head coaching interviews, one with Minnesota, another one with Denver. By the way, Eagles front office members, 2 Eagles front office members are being interviewed for GM jobs, both with the Minnesota Vikings. So you got that as well. So a off season of change is coming for the Philadelphia Eagles. What will it be? Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN. All right, let me get you the numbers. 609-573-3776, 609-573-3776. That's the phone lines if you want to jump in on the phones. I've got 2 open lines right now for you to jump in. I'm going to clear out the phone bank. We're on a little early today because of the Sixer game, so I'm going to give the people out there a chance to voice their opinion. 1 o'clock, Jeff Mosher, and then in the 1 o'clock hour, we'll have a chance to read off some of the text messages as well. All right, 609-573-3776, 609-573-3776. Let me go to John and Cape May. John, you're on 97.3. What's up, John?
Hey, Mike. Thanks for taking my call.
Sure, bud.
I was listening to you guys. I was listening to you, and and then Sal came on and pretty much said what you were saying, and there's a lot of question marks. Like, all we wanted was a game, and after the first quarter, like, there was no game. There was, it was one-sided. There was no answers. Like, what do we do next? And there was no answers at all, and that's probably the most frustrating of it all.
Well, the problem is, John,
we're gonna run
they had a couple chances. It was 17-0. They throw the interception. It's frustrating, but they're still in that game, in my mind, until Rager muffs that punt. At that moment, they were done.
And the first drive, Tampa's first drive, big penalty called. We stopped them
that's a good point.
On a third down, I think.
That's a good point. And
we
you know what?
Them.
That's a reputation penalty, because even the broadcast is saying that's kind of weak. When Aikman is saying that's kind of weak, he's a quarterback. That's a weak call, but that's a reputation call on Barnett. And that's because Barnett they say, watch 96. He's late sometimes, and that's why they get that call.
Yeah, and then Rager, what you were talking about. Why do they have this guy back there? Either catch the ball, don't go near it, or, it's pretty simple at that point.
On the coaches, in my opinion.
It would have went out of bounds.
That ball, to me, that play, and John, I appreciate the call. That's on the coaching staff. Rager has displayed time and time again that he is not capable to handle that job. That is on Sirianni or the special teams guy. Now, Sirianni said that Ward was not available to return punts and that they really didn't have another option. That's on them. Because going in that Rager's a problem. You cannot have him out there make a mistake early in the game, and then he made another mistake later on in the game. Glenn and EHT, you're on 97.3. Hi, Glenn.
Yo, Mike. Those 7 seeds had a rough day yesterday.
Yes, they did.
Pennsylvania,
and they've had a rough day. In the 2 years that the 7 seed has been in the playoff, they've all pretty much, except for one, got beat up pretty good. So it shows you the difference between where the 2 and the 7 is. There's a big gap there.
Oh, yeah, the Steelers are far off. They got issues on both sides of the ball at quarterback, too, defense. But when you look at the Eagles, too, I mean, the blame pie, I usually like to make it a pie and give everybody a piece. And Jalen gets his piece. I mean, when you talk accuracy, when you talk pocket presence, I mean, his decision-making, I mean, he has to be held accountable for that. I mean, it might not be on him, but he definitely gets a nice slice of the pie.
Oh, I agree.
And, I mean, can he be coached? can he be coached out of that? You'd hope so. I think he's a player. I got friends of mine who are out on him already and been out on him all year. They're not even giving him a chance. So I really think he has the skills to be a productive and a good quarterback. But I just
Glenn,
think it could come from the sideline.
The point you make is a good one. Here's the issue. If you don't like Hurts, it's because somewhere in your mind, do you think you're getting the next Aaron Rodgers or the next? You have to be realistic with what's out there. There's only so many of these elite guys. So, yeah, I might say, do I think Hurts is the guy? Not necessarily, but I don't want to go through this revolving door of trying to find that guy. What I want to do is build the team around until, how does Green Bay get Rodgers? Teams make mistakes and he falls to them. How do teams get their quarterback? Very few times is it a team bottoms out, hits rock bottom, drafts a guy number one, and then they take off. It happens, but that's fewer and far between. Normally, the good teams have a team in place, and then the quarterback falls to them.
Starts on the sideline. Bottom line, I mean, when it comes to the coaching, whether it be decisions about the punt returner or, just the way the quarterback does his thing, starts on the sideline. It's all about coaching. I think it's a very big deal. And I think Jalen Hurts could be coached up. I think he's raw, absolutely raw. But I definitely think he has enough talent to be a productive NFL quarterback.
Glenn, I appreciate the call. I agree. I said this a couple of weeks ago. I am rolling with Hurts for a third season. I can't make a judgment on somebody after 4 games one year and 15 games the next year. If I made a judgment on Josh Allen under the same circumstances, I would have got rid of Josh Allen in Buffalo because Josh Allen was an erratic passer, not even 60%, who had trouble reading defenses. What did they do? They got weapons around Josh Allen. They started to build the team around Allen, and then Allen became a much better player. They went out and got Diggs. The Eagles need to do that for Hurts. They need to get him more. You can't just have a rookie Devonta Smith and a tight end be your entire offense and then judge the guy on that. I think one problem, Watkins is a nice player. All right, Watkins is a nice player. I said this weeks ago. Watkins is a number 3, though. He can't be the number 2. Watkins has problems reading zone defense. He cannot find an opening in the zone. He can run past guys in man. They threw zones yesterday. Watkins has trouble finding spaces in the zone, and that's just being young and inexperienced. 609-403-0973, 609-403-0973. Tom in Summers Point, you're on 97.3. What's up, Tommy?
Michael, I try to give Jalen Hurts a chance, but Michael, you don't look at him once all season and say, wow. There are more Josh Allens, Burrows, A-Bears in the league than there are Brady's and Aaron Rodgers. However, Mike, you need a pocket passing quarterback that can throw the ball. What the Tampa Bay did yesterday was take away the run and said, Jalen Hurts, make a pass. He does not have that skill, Mike. The RPO quarterback is not winning in the playoffs because an RPO quarterback that's looking to run is not a great pocket passer. And until you get that through your head that you think that is the evolving offense, the quarterback that drops back, Mike, and has the rocket and just throws the ball first before the wide receiver even makes the cut is the way that you win in the NFL. The RPO wins in the regular season, Mike, like we saw with Jalen Hurts against dog teams. But when you're in the playoffs, you play the best of the best. I don't know who the next quarterback of the Eagles should be. I'm not a GM. I'm a fan.
Yeah.
But as a fan, I don't look at Jalen Hurts and say, as a fan, Mike, I don't look at Jalen Hurts once and say, wow, he does that great. He's not a great pocket passer, so he can scramble a little bit, Mike. But in the playoffs, when you play, listen, we didn't play good teams this year because we were 4-12 the year before, and we had a weak schedule. Now we went 9-7.
Hold on. I don't understand why people keep saying that. I don't understand. They play 2 games against teams based on where they finished the year before. The schedule is predetermined 5 years in advance. It has nothing to do. They play 2 games. So the Jet game and they
Mike, when you win the division, you play when you win the division, like you play division, you play the top schedule.
No.
5 years ahead of time. No, I don't believe that.
Tom, then you don't know what you're talking about. The schedules are now based on the entire division, the NFC East. They all play against the same division. So you play all 4 teams in the NFC, and then you have 2 games. There's 2 extra games. So yes, if you win the division, you have 2 games against the team that finished first in whatever division they met. So this year the Eagles
2 games, Mike.
Right, they had 2 games.
Are a lot in the league.
I understand that, but it's not that they played an entire. Okay. People still think it's like 10 years ago where you play these last place schedules. That's not the case anymore.
Mike, I understand you play who you play, but explain to me what you and Sal Palantonio look at Jalen Hurts and say, "Wow, he does that great."
Listen, Tom, I'm not sitting here telling you that I think that I'm not sitting here telling you that I think Jalen Hurts should be the definitive franchise quarterback. My question is, like I said, I'm not trading 3 draft picks, or I'm not drafting a guy in this particular draft. I'm not taking a guy in this particular draft with one of those draft picks because I don't think there's a quarterback in this draft. So with that, I am willing to see if Hurts takes another step forward. And if I don't, then at least I say, listen, I got a big enough sample size to now make my decision.
I think I've had a big enough. Me as a fan, Mike, I don't see it. And then to blame Gannon for that defense that we have. Who on that defense, Mike? You don't have any linebackers.
Oh, I didn't have a problem with Gannon. Sal had problem. I don't have a problem with Gannon as much. I thought the defense kept them in the game yesterday, for God's sakes. But you're right. On that one, Tom, I agree with you, and I got to run, man. I agree with you. They don't have a guy on defense. I don't think John Gannon can do what he wants defensively because they just don't have anybody on defense. They just don't have that guy that he can say, hey, Malcolm Jenkins, I'm going to game plan everything around you. I want you to be – they just don't have that guy. So Gannon, I'm not as down on as Sal is. I mean, Sal says he thinks he should be gone, and I don't really agree with that all that much. 609-573-3776. Dave in Millville is on 97.3. What's up, David?
Hey, guys. How's it going today?
Yo, everything's good.
Watching the game yesterday, we could have had a better performance. But measuring from last year to this year, we're moving in the right direction. We have a lot of room for growth, and we have a lot of draft choices. So let's utilize them. I'm looking on the positive side. It wasn't a Hurts's game. But, you went against a Hall of Fame quarterback, a Hall of Fame tight end, 2 probably Hall of Fame coaches. We've been outmatched yesterday, and that's all to it.
Oh, look, that's how look, if you went into yesterday thinking they were going to win this game and make some miraculous run to the Super Bowl, then sure, you're going to be disappointed. Did I want the game to be more competitive? Yes. But on the bright side of things, this team went from 4 wins to 9. They have draft picks. They've got some young players. What was this season about? It was, hey, last season was so miserable. Like, let's hope this team can be fun. And they became fun. This was a team that we enjoyed. We had fun watching them run the ball and make plays. They have some young playmakers, Goddard and Smith. And now all of a sudden you're like, okay, they have something to build on. And yesterday's game is an outlier of disappointment, but really it should be this team has a arrow pointing upwards.
Yes, exactly. With draft choices, we're very attractive, and our coaching staff was young. Savannah, he was the youngest coach in there. He was a first-year coach and made the playoffs.
Yep.
And we're overlooking those small things, but we're moving in the right direction. I feel good about the team. I really do.
Well,
and Hurts and
yeah, and David, I appreciate the call. You should feel good. Like, listen, the Eagles win 9 games this year. They're the 7th seed, and they get the doors blown off of them in the playoffs. Frustrating, disappointing, yes. You go to Dallas. They're the division champions. They have a home playoff game, and they lose that game. The Eagles, I feel like, okay, you lost the game. You're a young team. You got a new head coach. Arrows pointing up. Dallas is in some trouble here. Their coach is a disaster. I told you that all week long. I told you that all season long. Dallas has the best roster. They have the most talent. They've got the worst coach. And it showed yesterday. They're an undisciplined disaster. And here's their problem. We talk about the Eagles' arrow pointing up as opposed to where Dallas is. Dallas paid Dak Prescott, and this is where the Eagles, you have to make that decision about the quarterback. Do I want to roll with Hurts? I don't have to pay Hurts all that much money. Look what happened to Seattle. As soon as they paid Russell Wilson, the roster starts to deteriorate. Dallas is going to start going through the deterioration of the roster because of what they paid Dak Prescott. They are $14 million over the cap already. They've got key free agents that they have to figure out what to do with. And now your offensive line is aging, and that's continuing. So you have an Eagles team that lost with 9 wins, but has a lot of younger pieces and a lot of draft capital and a much better cap situation. You've got a Cowboys team that won 12 games, but got knocked out in the first round because, quite frankly, they're a poorly coached team. I said it all week long. When I saw San Francisco against Dallas, San Francisco is a better coach team, and Shanahan's got his own problems. That's how bad McCarthy is. They're undisciplined, and until Jerry Jones decides that I need to bring a coach in here, that I don't care if the coach gets credit for our success, they're going to continue to be the same problems there. Jerry Jones wants the accolades for the roster. He doesn't want the coach to get credit for getting the most out of the roster. He wants at the end of the day to say, Jerry put together this great roster, and that's why they won. And that's why they won't win. They're the best roster. They have the most talent. They're the worst coach team out there. I mean, that's easy to see. Everybody saw it. Chris Mortensen tweeted out this morning that 75% of the former players, scouts, front office people that he asked, they all said San Francisco was winning that game. People who work in the league and know football know that Dallas had nobody thought Dallas was a legit team because the coach. That's an easy one. The Eagles don't have that problem right now. The Eagles have the arrow pointing up. I think Dallas has the arrow pointing down. When you pay that quarterback what you paid that quarterback, he's got to be Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers, or better. Can't beat Dak Prescott. I like Dak. I think he's really good. But you saw his limitations yesterday. Can't pay him $40 million because you know what that means? Now you can't pay the other guys. And that roster will start to suffer. And I think the Eagles roster is going to start to only get better and better and better. So yesterday hurts, but you played the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. What you expect was going to happen? I think we all got a little overzealous because the Eagles were fun. They ran the ball. They had an identity that we enjoyed. And that shows you that the arrow is pointing up. They need to figure out what the heck to do with quarterback. Will Howie Roseman, I'll give you my opinion on this right now. If there is a trade to be made, I think the Eagles will make it. If there's a trade to be made, I think the Eagles will make that trade. This hour of the show, it's brought to you by the expert solar team of New Jersey, EMT Solar and Roofing Solar Guardian. Start your solar journey today. Learn more. Visit ESPNsolar.com. I'm Mike Gill. This is the Sports Bash. We're going till 2 o'clock. Sixers Wizards at 2, and then I'll be back right after the Sixers game for more reaction on Super Wild Card Weekend. Football at 1 with Jeff Mosher is coming up next here on the Sports Bash live on 97.3 ESPN. All right, football at 4, happening at 1 o'clock today. It's brought to you by Caesars Entertainment Group of Atlantic City. Come experience the ultimate sports destinations all season long. Wild Wild West, Tropicana, Harrah's Resort, Atlantic City. Book your game day experience today at Caesars.com. We're taking you till 2, Sixers, Wizards, and then we'll be on right after the game, right around 4:30 today. You can catch the show. So we'll get 2 hours here, another hour to play with. Jeff Mosher from the Inside the Birds podcast. They broke down this action. You can check out a full Inside the Birds reaction. We got them right now here on the Sports Bash live on 97.3 ESPN. All right, Moshe. Well, we knew this day was bound to happen, and here we are. The postmortem has gotten here. Shouldn't be much of a surprise. I think maybe the lack of competitiveness was maybe more of the surprise. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I thought this time around it would be a more competitive game. We've seen the Eagles be able to run against some pretty good run-stopping teams, whether that was New Orleans weeks ago. Washington at times has been decent against the run. So, when healthy. So I thought that they would be able to control the line of scrimmage a little bit more. I didn't think that they were going to overwhelm the Bucks, and I thought that there would be bouts of adversity. But one thing that we said on the pregame show, Adam and I really agreed that what the Eagles could not do was fall behind like 10-0 that like they had done early in the games against I think it was the Giants in Washington, and then just figure they can come right back. We knew if they fell behind early against the Bucks, it's probably because they weren't running the ball well and then would have to pass the ball a lot, and that's obviously not their strong point right now.
Yeah, let's go through some of the things. Let me ask you this. Was there a moment in the game that you felt they're not getting back in this game or this game's over? Where was that for you where you felt the disparity is obvious?
Yeah, I mean, I think 14-0 again because it was so early, and the way Tom Brady marched the offense down the field the first time to get 7 was not great. They converted a couple of third downs there. It really wasn't difficult for him. And then, to me, 17-0 was going to be impossible to come back from. And then, of course, the Gronkowski wide open touchdown seals the deal there. But I thought pretty early on when they get the Bernard 2-yard touchdown on the first drive, and then I think that the Kevon then they punted and they came back with the 10-play 70-yard drive with the Kevon, I always forget his name. Kevon Vaughn. Is that what his name? That's the name, right? Keyshawn Vaughn, whatever. I'm sorry, I'm butchering names. But when he scored and they go up 14-0 after 3 possessions, and the Eagles had not really done much on their first 2 or 3 possessions, that did not bode well for the rest of the game.
Yeah, I mean, I wrote down 5 observations for me. I mean, I thought the Bucs set the tone right from the game. Now, I know we talked about it Friday. If you win the toss, do you take the ball? I don't think that changes the game, but you give them the ball, and they did what they did. They went right down the field and scored on you, and I thought that set the tone of the whole game. Then it's 17-0. The interception, is a killer because you're going to get points and the ball back. Mm-hmm. Forget all that. It's 17-0. You still got the ball back. You go 3 and out. You get the stop. They punt, and then the muff punt. I mean, that just absolutely, I thought, was the no doubt about it because they go right down and score after that, and now it's 24-0. So even though it was 17-0, they still had a couple chances to at least try to get points on the board.
Right.
That muff punt, though, I thought was really and he says yesterday, well, Ward had back spasms. That's not for me. Rager's getting a lot of heat, and he deserves it. He stinks, but that's on the coaching staff for continuing to put him out there.
Yeah, it was a windy day. He looked a little bit distracted. Jalen Rager did, so I don't know, but I agree with you. I would have tried to find a different alternative at that point, but I think that also illustrates the big picture that the Buccaneers. This was the tone of the column I wrote. The Bucs are just better, a lot better than the Eagles, and you hope that going 7-3 down the stretch doesn't make the front office or anyone think that there were not major holes. Muff punts and shanked punts. You did not see that from the Buccaneers. Bad turnovers you did not see from the Buccaneers. Just being fast, being physical, being aggressive, especially on defense. You didn't see that from the Eagles the way you see it in the Buccaneers. crisp passing, timing, rhythm. You did not see that from the Eagles the way you saw from the Buccaneers. So these teams this is not a game where I hope people are like, man, the Eagles really, they blew it by mistakes. If they did this differently, if they did that differently, they could have won the game. No, this team has now done it twice in a row against the Bucs. If they played them 10 times, they're going to lose that time, 8 out of 10. You just wish that you're losing like 26-24 or showing that you're a growing team, you're a competitive team, and you're not the team from the first 7 weeks. And unfortunately, they did look like the team from the first 7 weeks.
What you think? I look, Sirianni, I thought had a pretty solid season. I thought he made some good adjustments from early in the year. They turned into a run team. I thought for the most part, the team seemed prepared. I thought he got waxed yesterday.
Well, it's hard, I think, for him when your bread and butter is taken away from you right from the start. Can you run back into a game when you're down, 14-0, 17-0? Yes, but again, this team, it's not just their offense and Brady. They're very difficult to run against. There are some teams that have figured it out, but when you're already down, they can get more aggressive. They can take more shots. And then clearly they have Todd Bowles is a great defensive coordinator, and they had a really good game plan for what they wanted to do with Jalen Hurts, and that's kind of force him to go to his left, where he doesn't throw the ball as well. And they were able to bring guys up on the line of scrimmage to stop the zone read. You saw that frustrated them. So, yeah, could Nick Sirianni done things differently? Sure. But I do hear a lot of, how do you not get the ball to Devontae Smith until the third quarter? And I say, well, Nick Sirianni doesn't draw up a play called the Devontae Smith play. Like in the first 15, you may have a few plays where you're throwing screens or this or that to get the ball, but you draw up plays that are designed to beat the defenses that you're seeing. And if Devontae Smith's running wide open across the middle of the field and the quarterback's throwing it to somebody else because he predetermined that throw, that's on the quarterback too. It's not just on Nick Sirianni.
Yeah, I was going to ask about Smith and his role in the offense. I mean, is he to you a legit number one guy? I mean, is he the guy that can build an offense around? Is he your Devontae Adams? Is he your, one of those guys? Or do they have to find a better guy or at least a compliment guy to him?
Well, it's a twofold question because if I do think that because he's the way he's like kind of a long strider for a little guy, he's not explosive. He's not Jamar Chase, for example, who can go out there and just completely bury you and make a contested and do 1,000 things. I mean, he's not bad. I'm not trying to say Devontae Smith's not in the same echelon, but he's a different kind of wide receiver. And the biggest comparison that you would get from people from him coming out of college was Marvin Harrison, who was a great wide receiver. But the Colts also had Reggie Wayne opposite Marvin Harrison, if I'm not mistaken. So I do feel like this team needs another wide receiver. But the problem is you can go out and get Allen Robinson. You can go out and trade for Calvin Ridley. But does that guy get the targets worth either the draft pick or the trade competition or the money you're paying in free agency? Does the quarterback see that half of the field to get that guy the football?
Yeah, you're trying to figure out, okay, what this offense is moving forward, and you're just trying to envision with him, what he is. You have him and Goddard you feel pretty good about, and obviously you need to find another guy. Do you find that level of guy, Calvin Ridley, Allen Robinson, or do you just need to get a more veteran player like a Torrey Smith like they got a couple of years ago? So right. I feel like that's a big question mark for them moving forward if Hurts is going to be your quarterback, right?
Yes. Yeah. Well, I mean, even if you get a guy who does see the field better or just is a little bit more of a distributor all around, you're still going to, it does feel like the Eagles have a number one wide receiver, a number one tight end, but then like almost a number 4 wide receiver after that. They do need another really good receiving option, I think, to be an explosive offense that can handle itself against really good playoff caliber teams. And maybe even if you're down 14-0 and you have to throw the ball, you don't feel so bad. Like if the Chiefs are down 14-0, right, you're not counting them out of a game because they have so many weapons. So I think the Eagles do need an upgrade in that regardless.
Right, because it's hard for that. I find it's just hard to kind of evaluate Hurts when I think the pass game is so it's very one-dimensional.
The pass game is, one-dimensional, two-dimensional, however you want to call it. It's pretty. I mean, the Bucs pretty much knew what the Eagles were going to do when they wanted to throw the ball, and they were able to scheme as they wanted. Some of those other teams that the Eagles played down the stretch, I'm sure they would have loved to have had either the athletes, the acumen, or the health to be able to throw some of their best players on the field and do that. But the Eagles did catch some teams at a time where they didn't have full strength. So,
Right.
but that's the even the Bucs were in full strength. They were missing some guys. They're just better.
Yeah. So, I mean, let me ask you about what you saw from Hurts yesterday. Did he struggle? Was there just not plays to be made? How do you kind of look at his performance? And, they had 17 yards of offense in the first quarter. They didn't score in the first half. The quarterback has to have some role in that.
Yeah, he certainly does. I think it illustrated the fact that although he has grown throughout the year, he is still a quarterback that needs the running game to be functional and probably overwhelming to be able to work off of that. When he has to throw the ball a lot, I still think so one thing I've been told by people who have seen Eagles tape who work in the league is that when they watch him play, he tends to go from a low to high progression instead of a high to low. So sometimes he misses those guys who are wide open downfield because he's already seen the defense surveyed and decided that the shorter route is going to be the safer route and the better route. And so he completes those passes at times and it looks good, but you leave the plays on the field or you become predictable after that, where the scheme or that you're going against, the defensive coordinator, they kind of pick on to that and they'll let you just, dink and dunk like that and try to take away everything else. So that was kind of manifested in the game. And also, the arm strength for the type of throw he's trying to make. I've said it many times with you, right? Russell Wilson doesn't have a very strong arm, but he throws with great timing, great anticipation, especially on the deep ball. He's one of the best deep ball throwers without having a rocket arm. But when you watch Jalen Hurts play, the first interception right before halftime, the cornerback falls. Smith is wide open. He's late to see that. And then when he does see that, he's throwing on the run. He's not square. So when he throws, he doesn't have that Herbert-like zip to just get the ball to Smith. Then the safety recovered and made an interception. And then the second throw, Mike, was kind of the bad decision-making off the back foot, looping it in the air. And we've seen that at times too. And that's almost more of a disappointing because that's just a bad decision from the start. On that play, if you watch it in slow motion, you'll see that he actually he left the pocket a little bit into pressure. If he had climbed it, he had got really good protection on that play. If he climbed the pocket just a little bit because he bought himself extra time, Jordan Howard had leaked out and was wide open across the middle. I mean, that's a pitch and catch to Jordan Howard instead of an interception.
That's on the offensive side of the ball. Now, I they give up 31. Gannon, obviously, people have their problems, but he forced 7 punts. They got 4 sacks. I felt like the defense kept them around. Like we said, like it's only 17-0. Like if the offense had a pulse, the defense, I thought, did, which isn't indicative of what they were all season against the better teams. But in this game, you give up 31. You're like, his defense got blitzed again. But 4 sacks and 7 punts, I feel like they had a shot with the way their defense played.
It's tough. I don't know how to reconcile it because I agree with you. They go through a stretch there where you mentioned, I think they had sacks on third downs on 3 consecutive drives that forced those 3 punts you were talking about. But how do you balance that against the first 4 possessions? 3 of them were of 10 or more plays and of 50 or more yards. So it's almost like they were Jekyll and Hyde. And then after they had that nice stretch of three consecutive possessions where the Bucs had to punt, then they had the turnover issues, and you saw that the defense gave up touchdowns immediately, right?
Mm-hmm.
A 5-play, 48-yard drive after the muff punt, and then an immediate 36-yard touchdown after the interception, the one to Mike Evans. They didn't produce a whole lot of turnovers. So, again, you want to play defense, you want to be stout, but in playoff games, takeaway ratio, turnover ratio is really important. It's been a thing for them all year where you've seen them play pockets of good defense, but still not be able to produce game-changing type of plays. Yeah. So and look, part of the 2 touchdowns they allowed in the second half might have been on the field a whole lot because of the muff punt and the interception. So I do agree with you in some sense that the defense sort of straightened themselves out. But again, you can't allow, if you want to win a game, you can't allow touchdown drives of 10, 11, 12 plays 3 times in your first 4 times out on the field there.
You're right. Well, I mean, the whole predication of this defense is you're going to have to do 12, 15 plays
Right.
multiple times in the game, and you're going to make mistakes in those drives that,
Right.
that's where they don't get the turnover and they constantly give up points. It was,
Or you got to be really solid in the red zone, right? If you're going to have that philosophy, you
Right.
got to make sure you're giving up field goals and not touchdowns.
correct. Like Washington, they gave up the 3 field goals instead of, or 2 field goals instead. And,
Right.
Washington gets shut out in the second half. You think John Gannon, he's going to get a couple head coaching interviews? Is he a legit candidate for these jobs?
Well, it's hard to say because obviously if we graded on performance, probably not. He didn't have a terrible year, but he didn't have a great year. But it's not always about performance, right? I mean, like Joe Judge sat in a chair with Mara and Tish, the owners of the Giants, and he blew him away with his I don't want to say spiel, but with whatever he said. And they fell in love with him. And so John Gannon's really smart and he's engaging and all of that stuff comes out when you sit down and talk to him. He's a bright guy. I know a lot of people are down on him right now, but again, he was seen as a head coaching candidate even before he took this job as the next future head coach. And his players really do like him and respect him and then believe what he preaches. So I can see Jonathan Gannon sitting in a chair going through his, like Andy Reid with the thick binder with Jeffrey Lurie and Joe Banner in 98, kind of wowing them with his philosophies and with his, thoughts on where the game is headed and where they have to be and getting a job. I wouldn't say it's likely, but I'm just saying you can't dismiss it just because people are mad about what they've seen yesterday and throughout the year. It's not always about what you did that year as a coach.
Absolutely, because I think if you ask John Gannon or people in that front office, hey, does John Gannon have the pieces on defense to have an outstanding defense? And you would say, not really. I mean, the problem is around this team, you don't have that guy that you can say on any given week, I'm going to do this with you, and we're going to game plan you for this. They just don't have that guy.
Right.
I mean, if Darius Slay, no knock on Slay, had a great year, but if he's the best guy you got, you're Detroit.
You're right. I mean, clearly the Eagles have a better D line, but they are very deficient on the back end in what I call like progressive, interchangeable, movable pieces and playmakers. You look at the Bucks; they've got the Bucks at one point, right? They drop Vita Vea and Ndamukong Suh into coverage and blitz the safeties. I mean, if that's not the craziest thing you'll ever see,
yeah,
I don't know what is. And I'm not saying like you need to be that radical with your defensive linemen, but their linebackers are steady. Their safeties are steady. Their corner opposite Darius Slay are steady. But these guys are not the type of guys that are going to make you these game-breaking type of play. They're not the Darius Leonards of the world. They're not the Tyrann Matthews. Even Avonte Maddox. He's a good player, but you saw what happened. And tip of the cap to Bruce Arians. He said, I'm going to make this guy play man coverage on my best wide receiver. So he puts Evans in the slot. And that's a mismatch for Evans. So they've got to get better and more, not just better in talent, but also in acquiring the type of talent that can play in a defense that's predicated on disguise and deception and movable parts and pieces.
Jeff Mosher, okay, now the offseason's here. The first thing that needs to be addressed is what?
I mean, they obviously have to decide what they want to be going forward offensively, and that's going to be a conversation in which the quarterback is involved. So that's the first thing that they have to decide, right? The offensive makeup and how the quarterback fits or does not fit. And then the second thing is what I talked about on defense. They have to figure out a way to become more athletic, more diversified, and fit what Jonathan Gannon wants to do on the back end.
They got 3 draft picks, so I'm sure we'll talk more about this on Friday as we start to look ahead to the offseason. If Jeff Mosher was making the first selection at number 15, what is the number one area that they have to target?
Well, I'm BPA on this, so I mean, look, defense is very important. I think around 15, you'll probably see a pass rusher. So I think that a guy, if a George Karlaftis or David Ojabo from Michigan is there, that's good. If Sauce Gardner from Cincinnati is there, I'd take a long hard look. Although corners tend to go early, so I don't know that he'll be there. And, man, I'm just trying to get an idea of who I think is going to be around 15. Jordan Davis, the defensive tackle from Georgia, should be considered. I would personally consider one of those linebackers, either N'Kobe Dean or Devin Lloyd, but I think you and I know that that's probably unlikely. Same thing with the safety from Notre Dame. If I could get the safety from Notre Dame, I would probably be, I'd be happier than a
Kyle
what and
Hamilton.
what. But yeah, Kyle Hamilton. But I also don't think that's. I think you're looking more about that corner defensive end area there with Sauce. There's another cornerback, and Singleton will be gone by then. But there's a kid from Auburn who's pretty good, McCrary. Yep. The pass rushers I just mentioned. That's kind of what you're looking at.
Yeah, Josh Sweat not playing yesterday. I mean, it didn't kill him. Kerrigan actually played a half-decent game yesterday, so but you need a defensive end too.
Yeah. Well, that's why I
Barnett's going to be gone, right?
Yeah, that's why I mentioned Ojabo or George
That
Karlaftis.
Barnett penalty was a big moment in the game too.
Yeah, it was a big moment, and it's easy to say that's what you get with Derek Barnett, and you do. Although in that one, it's probably been a little bit more reputation. It looked like he was kind of blocked in there, and then tried to hold up and didn't. The funny thing is, it feels like in the fourth quarter when they were clearly losing the game, he's like, you know what, I'm going to go pick a fight with Tom Brady now.
Yeah, right.
Now that a penalty won't hurt me, why don't I go put my hands on Tom Brady?
Yeah, gives him a little two-hand shove, and then he's like,
Yeah.
All right, football at 4. It's Jeff Mosher from the Inside the Birds podcast. You guys can check out more from the recap on the newest edition of the Inside the Birds podcast. It's out now wherever you listen to your podcast. Jeff will be back on Friday as we start to look ahead. They got some cap space. They got some draft choices. They got to figure out the quarterback situation. They got a couple of free agents they're going to have to decide on. And
can I add one thing real quick, Mike?
Sure.
Because back to your question, I mean, they'd certainly have to figure out the Jason Kelce situation and whether or not Jason Kelce is going to come back.
They figure that out, or does he figure that out for them?
Well, that's what I'm saying. If he wants to come back, you're like, okay, but he has a poison pill in his contract, so it would have to be reworked, or else they owe him like $25 million or something crazy like that. So they've got to figure that out, because if he doesn't come back, then you kind of have to figure out, well, where's Dickerson going to go? Where's Sayamalo going to go? What am I doing with Brandon Brooks? What am I doing with Jack Driscoll? Do I draft Tyler Lindenbaum if he's available at 15
that
or 16?
Whole situation, even if Kelce comes back, that answer is looming of who's your next center. Is it Dickerson? Is it Sayamala? Is it somebody else? Like, no matter what, whether he's back or not, they have to figure out what Dickerson's next step is. Are they just going to make him the left guard? Do they look at him as the center long term? I think that looms.
Right.
I noticed that Lane Johnson was out of the game yesterday.
Yes,
later on.
They said the knee, which he's been dealing with for a while. Yeah.
Now, that being said, he's starting to get up there. You're going to have to start deciding what to do at right tackle. Brandon Brooks, what's his deal? I mean, he did not get put on the injured list, but was unable to play. So the offensive line, while it seems it was very strong, they do have some questions there.
Very much so. I agree.
All right, Jeff Mosher's back Friday, and we will start to look at some of those questions because the offseason's here. Football at 4 rolls on all offseason long. Playoffs, the playoffs. We'll talk NFL playoffs. We'll also get into free agency and the draft and all that stuff here on Football at 4. All right, Jeff, take care, man.
All right, Mike, thanks.
Another good edition of Football at 4 with Jeff Mosher here from the Inside the Birds podcast. And, of course, you can hear Jeff on the Inside the Birds podcast, which is out right now over on Apple, Google, wherever you listen to your podcast. All right, we got plenty more to come this hour. We'll take you till the top of the hour. The Sixers play the Wizards today at 2. We got you till then. Football at 4 is brought to you by Caesars Entertainment Group of Atlantic City. Come experience the ultimate sports destinations all season long. Wild, Wild West, Tropicana, Harrah's Resort, Atlantic City. Book your game day experience today at Caesars.com. You text, I'll react next. Here's the number, 609-403-0973. Every text that comes in on the other side, we will address 609-403-0973. You text, I'll react next, and then Mike McGarry to close out the show for the first portion, and then the Sixers at 2, and then I'll be back tonight at 4:30-ish here on 97.3 ESPN. 1:31, Mike McGarry, in about 9 minutes from now. You guys out there, 609-403-0973. If you're listening on the radio, if you're listening on the free mobile app, you can message us through the app on your phone. If you're watching the show live over on the YouTube channel, leave a comment in the comments section, and we will react to those as well. 609-403-0973. Paul from Millville says, do you think the refs have played too much of a role in these playoff games? I mean, the refs are what they are. I mean, people who complain about the refs, to me, if you went into the game thinking the refs are going to be flawless, and then this is what you got, you're going to be disappointed. The refs are a factor in every game, every week, versus both teams. I mean, Dallas gets called for 14 penalties yesterday. Half of them are before the snap. I mean, Skip Bayless, who is the biggest Cowboy honk there is, said every single one of those penalties against Dallas was justified yesterday. Sometimes your team is just undisciplined. And when you're undisciplined all year long, you have a reputation, and then that reputation, like Derek Barnett has a reputation. The call against Barnett on Brady is a horrible call. But because Barnett has that reputation, he gets that call against him. It's not a good call, but your reputation gets that call. Dallas is an undisciplined team. And that's why they get calls against them sometimes. You know, I watched that game yesterday. I don't know what people are watching. Every one of those calls, you're like, yeah. I mean, when Tony Romo, who's essentially cheering for the Dallas Cowboys in real time, and I don't have a problem with that. Romo, I think, does a good job. He adds to the game. I have no problem with him, like, come on, you got to. He's admitting that the calls are right. Romo is literally saying, that's a good call. There wasn't one time yesterday where Romo was like, that call's a bad. Like, yes, these officials sometimes call too much. But that's what it is. Like, they're going to suck. Like, the game on Saturday night, they blow the whistle. All right. I mean, it was a problem. But that's not why you win or lose. They blow that whistle. It's like the second quarter of the game. And people are like, these refs, that's why we lost the game. No. The Dallas Cowboys lost because they're an undisciplined team. And being an undisciplined, poorly coached team, the domino effect is that you're going to get calls against you. If you watch the game and you're just objective, like you got Cowboy fans who are not objective watching the game. Like, I'm watching the game as I picked San Francisco to win the game. That's the only, I come on the air on Monday. Okay, I'm wrong. I picked Dallas. No, I picked San Francisco to win. I'm watching that game. I thought there was a missed call. All right. Zeke Elliott's pitch to the left side. He's coming to the near side. Now, I was in the car at the time. They did not talk about the call, and I went back and watched it on TV. They didn't talk about it on TV either. But I thought Zeke Elliott got a face mask or hit to the head. So it might not have been a face mask, but it definitely got a hit to the head. They didn't call it. They miss calls. These guys miss calls. So to go back to the question, the refs play a role, but they play a role for both sides. They play a role for both sides. Both teams get royally screwed somewhere along the way in that game. But the biggest thing is your reputation precedes you. If you come in, the refs are saying, look, number 96, he does this a lot, or number 97, he does that a lot. You got to watch him. I mean, there's one play, they get called for illegal hands to the face, Dallas does. I forget who it was, the defensive tackle. He's got Alex Mack, the center's helmet, basically off of his head. I mean, he's pushed his helmet off of his face. And the Cowboys fans are telling me they never call that. His helmet is off of his head. A couple more texts. Mike, watching the 7 seeds get blown out, should the NFL begin to second-guess their playoff expansion? Well, they should. They're not going to. It's they got 6 playoff games this weekend. That's what it's about. It's about money. So they should think about it, but they're not going to. There's no need for 7 playoff teams on both sides of the ledger. Just not enough talent. Mike, all jokes aside, I think it was definitely a successful season for the Birds this year. I hope fans don't all of a sudden want Hurts out. This is good experience for a young team. With that said, I know you hate this, but there is something to be said about them not having one win versus a playoff team. I don't hate that. Just the reality is they didn't beat anybody with a good record. I said the same thing about Dallas. Dallas won 12 games. 6 of them came against the NFC East. I think Dallas had one win against a winning team this year. I think they beat New England. And I don't know that New England had a winning team, a winning record at the time. And I've said this before, a lot of teams don't have good wins, so there's not a lot of good teams. Really, there's only about 5 teams in the league that are legitimately good. You could go through every team's schedule and be like, well, who did they beat? This team's not that good. Dallas this year beat the Chargers, who didn't make the playoffs. The Panthers, who didn't make the playoffs. They beat the Giants twice, who didn't make the playoffs. They beat the Vikings, didn't make the playoffs. They beat the Falcons, didn't make the playoffs. They beat the Saints, didn't make the playoffs. They beat Washington twice, didn't make the playoffs. And they beat the Eagles twice. So they didn't win a game against a playoff team other than New England. And at the time they played New England wasn't all that good. And quite frankly, New England got the doors blown off of them too. So to further the point, yeah, they didn't have a very good schedule, but neither did anybody else really. Mike, a quarterback who runs better than he throws will never win a Super Bowl. The playoffs are about converting third downs from the pocket with your arm. Running quarterback will always get shut out in the playoffs. The Eagles still do not have a number one receiver. Devontae Smith should not have been picked in the first round. He's not a physical specimen or take the top off a defense guy. His ceiling is a number 2. You could have drafted him in round 3 or 4. Well, all right. I shouldn't even address that one. I mean, Devonta Smith was going to get drafted in the top 15 by every single team in this league. Everyone. To say he's a 3rd or 4th round pick is preposterous. All right, Mike McGarry, when we come back, we'll get his thoughts on that. Dallas's loss. What's next in the NFC East? Whose arrow is pointing higher, Dallas or Philly? They are the top 2 teams in the East. A bad East, by the way. Neither one of them had a signature win, really, this year. They're both out. We'll discuss that. Sixers at 2, and then I'll be back at 4:30-ish tonight on the Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN. 145 Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN. We'll take it to the top of the hour, then Sixers, Wizards. Then we'll be back after the Sixers game till 6 o'clock tonight with more reaction on the Eagles' loss. It ends the season. Mike McGarry from the Press of Atlantic City will give us some opinions on that. And I want to get his thoughts on this NFC East now moving forward because obviously there's a lot of questions. Both teams lost. Mike, what's going on?
Hey, how are you, Mike? I'm doing well.
All right, man. So yesterday, obvious, Philadelphia just outmanned, outclassed, outcoached, out everything in that game. Doesn't come to as a big surprise, but was there a surprise in the way the game was so lopsided?
To me, not really. I think there was a base scenario for the Philadelphia Eagles. It was how that game played out. They were down, 7-0 early, and for them to have any chance to down 14-0, and once it got to 14-0, it was game over. And remember on Friday we talked about not being the guy on the couch at 140 who talked himself into the Eagles. Well, that line went from 8.5 to 7. So there were a lot of guys on the couch at 140 saying, geez, why did I bet against Tom Brady and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, basically?
Yeah, and obviously the big question will now be Jalen Hurts. I think if you leave that game, you're saying what's next for the Eagles? That's got to be the number one offseason decision for them?
Yeah, I mean, I guess so. That's what we hear an awful lot of. Was this game a referendum on Jalen Hurts? And a lot of people want to move on from Jalen Hurts. My question is, who's going to play quarterback if it's not Jalen Hurts? Who are you going to get? I don't think there's anybody in the draft. I mean, there's question marks there. Maybe the kid from Pittsburgh, who knows? Are you going to convince a Russell Wilson to come here? Are you going to make a trade with those 3 first-round draft picks? So I agree 100%. Jalen Hurts was not ready to win yesterday's football game. He's not ready to throw, for 400 yards and lead you to victory in a playoff game yet. But can you win Jalen Hurts? Yeah, and I want to know who's going to – it's easy to say we're moving and to what? That's a bigger question.
Mike McGarry for the Press of Atlantic City. Obviously, Hurts is a big question there. Other than the quarterback spot, if you're now sitting in the room getting ready for the offseason, what is the next biggest thing that this team has to answer?
Well, to me, it's defensively, right? I hear an awful lot of people complaining about Jalen Hurts today, but I don't hear a lot of people saying that the Eagles gave up 31 points. The Eagles need to improve their defense. I think they need a pass rusher, an edge pass rusher, a guy who can consistently put pressure on the quarterback. I think that's one of the biggest needs. They have to improve their linebackers. But to me, it's the defense. I'm looking at that defense and say, everybody's saying Jalen Hurts, Jalen Hurts, Jalen Hurts. They gave up 31 points yesterday. That defense needs to be improved.
All right, I agree. There's no question. I'm not disagreeing with you at all. But if I told you, Mike, you got 4 sacks and caused 7 punts, don't you think that game goes a little differently?
Well, I know those are the stats, but I look at the game with my eyes and see Tampa Bay just dominating early on, especially, building that 14-0 lead. And I think they kind of put things in their back pocket once they got the lead and maybe didn't play as, played a little conservatively right there. So, again, I look, Tampa going right down the field on that defense early and often in the game and saying that needs to be improved. And let's look at every game the Eagles lost this year. They didn't beat a team with a winning record, right? Basic quality quarterback, they struggled.
Yeah.
So they've got to get a defense that can not fade when they face a good quarterback.
Hey, for you, I know Giants would have taken Devonta Smith, it seems like, if he was there. That was the big story of the draft. Did Devonta Smith tell you that he is a number 1 guy?
Yeah, absolutely. I like what Devonta Smith did this year, and I think there's only better days ahead for him. That's why I say I look at the Eagles at the skill positions, and I say Devonta Smith, Dallas Goedert, pretty good running back core there. We know that these guys need to, maybe they need to add a player or two on the skill position level. That's why I come back to the defense is where, that needs to be improved. And when it comes to the quarterback, again, you move in from Jalen Hurts in a way, unless you get a veteran in here, you might be starting over or taking a step backwards. So I'm only ready to move on from Jalen Hurts when I find out who Jalen Hurts' replacement is going to be.
Mike, I guess the next question for 9-8, you won 4 games, you lost a playoff game pretty handily. The 7 seeds, it's a big gap between 7 and 2, obviously. Arrow pointing up, down, side to side. Where is this franchise now that the season's over?
To me, I think the arrow is pointing up. I'm not going to overreact to the loss to Tampa yesterday. I'm going to look at the big picture, which is, far be it from me to be the voice of reason, right? But I'm going to try to be the voice of reason here and say, hey, you won 4 games last year. You had a rookie coach. You had basically a rookie quarterback in there. You won 9 games. You got to the playoffs. You added some good young talent in Devontae Smith, Lane Dickerson. You had a good draft. You got draft picks coming up, 3 first-round picks. To me, the arrow is pointing in the right direction. Now, yeah, going from 4 to 9 is probably the easy part. Going from 9 to 10, 11, 12 is the tough part. But I think they took a step forward in that direction this year. And if they do move in from Jalen Hurts, they better get that decision right, because if you make that decision wrong, you could go backwards.
All right, I'll flip over to the other team in the NFC East. Dallas, they lose yesterday. Just a mess of a game, poorly coached, totally undisciplined. Dallas, arrow pointing up, down, or side to side?
Side to side, because this is what we've seen from Dallas since, Barry Switzer left. It seems like yesterday was the type of game and the type of season they've had since like 1995, 1996. Enormously talented football team, a football team that should be better than it is. But for whatever the reason is, and most of it is poor coaching, can't seem to take the next step forward. So, side to side, it's the Dallas we've been watching for 25 years, and I have no reason to think that's going to change with Mike McCarthy at coach.
Yeah, well, that being said now, you had Philly as the second team, you had Dallas win the division. Is Dallas in danger, in your thoughts, of taking a step back next year and having one of those other 3 teams pass them?
Yeah, well, eventually, and I know I keep saying this, and that might be me hoping for better days, eventually Washington or the Giants is going to figure it out. So if Dallas remains the same, eventually the Giants are going to get their act together. Eventually Washington's going to get their act together. Eventually those 2 franchises just have to improve. It's almost the law of averages. So, and with Philadelphia improving, I think Dallas, should have taken advantage of the opportunity this year, and not taking advantage of it might mean, a step backwards next year.
Like, I agree. I feel like this was the year for them, and you got that Dak contract now, so you can't build around this team. Once the quarterback gets that contract, it gets a lot more difficult to build a team, and I think the Cowboys are about to find out that they're going to be in my opinion, arrow pointing down.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Everything was kind of made for them. The division was bad. Philadelphia was, better than they were last year, but not where they've been the past couple of years. This was the year that the proverbial window was wide open for the Cowboys, and it shut on an inexplicable quarterback drawer about 8 o'clock yesterday afternoon. It might have shut for who knows how long, basically.
Listen, when Skip Bayless goes on TV today and says every one of those penalties were justified, you can't blame the officials for losing that game. That's just an undisciplined and poorly coached team.
And that's what we've said for, again, since, Barry Switzer and Troy Aikman and Emmitt Smith and Michael Irvin hit the road. That's what we've seen from the Dallas Cowboys for 25 years. They're always seemingly relevant. They're always in the mix. But in the end, they're games like they did yesterday. And eventually, like I said, Washington, the Giants, they're going to figure it out. The Eagles are going to figure things. The Eagles are going to improve with what they have, So prime opportunity for the Dallas Cowboys wasted this year.
Let me ask you this. If you were Jerry Jones, would you bring McCarthy back?
I wouldn't bring him back. You look at what, it's been 2-year run, and yesterday, the play calling and the pre-snap penalties and the 14 penalties overall. I mean, everybody sees it, but I can only say that, Jerry Jones, this is the coach. So this is the performance he gets. I think Jerry Jones wants a coach that he can kind of make the decisions for. He brought in Parcells a while back, and and Parcells was there for a short time, and who knows what they would have done if Tony Romo would have held on to a snap in Seattle on an extra point, a couple of years ago. But this is the type of coaches that he likes, and it's just not winning football. And while we're at it, let's pump the brakes on the coordinator too, the offensive coordinator, because some of the play calling yesterday not good. CeeDee Lamb not getting the ball. The draw play at the end. So the whole Cowboys coaching staff, I think, needs to be reassessed. But we all know Jerry's not going to do it. They're going to continue the way they've done it for the last quarter of a century. Bodies in motion tend to stay in motion.
Nick Foles has 4 playoff wins since '96. The Cowboys have 3. Mike McGarry from the Press of Atlantic City will start to look at the offseason, the Sixers, and more here when he returns on Wednesday's show. All right, Mike. Thanks, pal.
All right. Happy Wild Card weekend. See you down the road.
Yeah, we'll get into all the playoff games on Wednesday when they're all complete. And Mike McGarry's appearance brought to you by Calvi Electric, now offering residential services for your home and business online, calvielectric.com. This is the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN. All right, that's it for the first portion of the show. We got Sixers basketball coming up next. I'll be back after the Sixers right around 4:30. So hang around for the Sixer game, playing the Wizards. Joel Embiid, man, what a game he had. They had 2 nice games over the weekend, the Sixers did. I know they kind of get lost in the sauce with all the playoff stuff, but it should be noted that they beat the Celtics on Friday night and they beat the Heat on Saturday. I thought the Heat game was really a statement win for them, a really good win against the Celtics are not a very good team, about 500. But the Heat has been a pretty good team, and the Sixers really dominated in both games. They got the Wizards coming up next, and you can only hear it right here on 97.3 ESPN, your home for Sixers basketball. I'll be back around 4:30 today, so stick around.